informative, along with taking your questions and comments. Now, here are your hosts for today's show.
Good evening. This is Attorney Matthew Noyes, and it is Tuesday, and that means that we are here for FLA Law on the radio. We are a live legal call-in talk show, so if you have any questions regarding the law, please give us a call. Again, it is at 727-441-3000. I am one of the attorneys at Pernick Caulfield Averill, Illinois, who sponsors this show. Pernick Caulfield Averill, Illinois has been in Clearwater since 1955. As my guest, I have somebody else who's been in Clearwater for a long time as well. My partner, Lori Robinson. Lori, thank you for coming again to the show.
Very happy to be here.
Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about you, when you started with the firm, and I already kind of let them know that you were born at Morton Plant Hospital.
Well, and then I guess I got to say, I've been here since 1955, too.
I wasn't going to say that.
No, as a man, you know better than that. But yeah, no, I've been with the law firm coming up on 25 years, which is, we were just actually reminiscing today because you were going through your middle drawer and found some old brochures from the older days.
Oh, my goodness. It was a fun travel down memory lane when I had hair. And when the hair wasn't gray, it was good. Yes.
That's an advantage we ladies have. Only my hairdresser knows for sure, so, as they say.
Yeah, but Lori is a board-certified civil trial attorney. And that's not something that most people can say. I think it's only 3% or 2%.
Small percentage of lawyers in the state of Florida.
Yeah. And that means that she is an expert in civil trial law. She and I work together on all our cases. And so I always tell our clients that they get the two attorneys for the price of one.
There you go.
And so Lori and I are here to talk to you about personal injury law, or workers' compensation, or Social Security disability as well. Lori handles a lot of Social Security disability cases for our clients. In fact, we had a pretty good week this week, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, of what's on the record and such like that. But so if you have questions regarding personal injury, workers' compensation, or Social Security disability, please give us a call at 727-441-3000. Before we take the first call, I did want to talk a little bit about bicycle accidents.
Oh, okay.
I saw an article that said that cycling deaths reached the 46-year high.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. According to the National Highway Safety Administration, 966 bicyclists were killed in traffic crashes in 2021. That's the most deaths in 1 year since 1975.
Wow. I wonder what caused that.
In 2020, it was 948. And in 2019, it was 858. In addition to the deaths, it was also I got to find that, 41,615 bicyclists were injured in bicycle accidents as well. So it is crazy how bicycle accidents happen.
I bet we can all kind of more or less imagine it, though, when you're driving down the road. It's so easy to miss somebody, to just not even recognize they're there. I mean, I have a friend who was actually heading to church several weeks ago, and there was actually, this particular fellow was on a moped, so he was in the road, but he was kind of to the side, and it's just he cut right in front of my friend, and thank God, there wasn't an accident or anything, but it really kind of just emphasized how easy it is for there to be an accident, and how important it is for the driver, obviously, to be more or less anticipating things.
And it's also too easy for us in the cars to miss somebody on a bike, especially if they're not wearing like reflective helmets or flak jackets.
Right.
That's
especially
right.
The flak jacket.
We live in a beautiful area.
Oh my goodness.
And we live in an area where there's a lot of tourists, and they're enjoying the beautiful weather and the beautiful scenery. But unfortunately, that sometimes means that they're not paying 100% attention, and that results in bicyclists being injured in a crash. But it is important also, I always like to talk about rights and responsibilities. And so bicyclists also have responsibilities as well. One of the things that I see a lot is that a lot of bicyclists have headphones on.
Wow.
They're driving
That's
around.
true.
There's a lot of people driving with headphones on. In fact, the Florida law says you're not allowed. Headphones or earphones are not allowed when you're driving a bike unless you only have it in one ear. I think that's new. I think it used to be that you were never allowed to have headphones.
But at least you'd be able to hear a little bit if you had it just in the one ear.
Yeah, I think that, it's important that you hear what's going on around you, because bicycle accident, I mean, we've represented a lot of bicyclists who get seriously injured after a crash.
We have somebody on the phone line, but before we get to them, I got a question though.
Okay.
So, this doesn't apply to anybody on bikes. This applies to me because I rollerblade. I don't know how to ride a bike, so I'm on skates.
Okay.
And this has to do with headphones because I listen to music a lot when I go skating. I don't go anywhere near the road if I can help it. I avoid going near streets at all costs on my skates. And that's just because I'm afraid of falling and going down in front of somebody coming on with a car.
Sure.
But would that apply to for like skating in a park, or is that just for road skating?
I think
or road biking?
I believe the statute says that any vehicle by human power.
All right, so I'm guessing then that would include roller skates.
I would think so.
This has already started getting phone calls. We have a call now. Stephanie from Clearwater is on the phone.
All right, Stephanie, thank you for listening. How can we help you?
Hi, I have a question.
Sure.
I've been a stay-at-home mom all my life, and my husband recently passed away.
No, sorry.
And thank you. And I wanted to know if I could apply for Social Security.
I think that's a very good question. Lori Robinson, our guest and a partner with Parent at Caulfield, Illinois, can probably address your question, Stephanie.
Okay, well, it kind of depends on the situation. So if you are, there's Social Security retirement, and so you would, if you are, I think you have to be 60. Can apply for a spousal benefit under your deceased husband's earnings record. Where we normally get involved is for disability claims, and so if a person has disabilities that prevent them from working, then in that situation, they may qualify for Social Security. And actually, you would, if you had a disability, I don't know if you do, but if you did, you would be able to apply under your husband's earnings record if you met the medical requirements. So there's the age-related, which is when you can get the spousal benefit, but I believe that's closer to 60 and above. I'd have to double check on that. It's definitely not. You do have to be at least close to retirement. But then there's also the disability aspect, which has to do with if you have like a medical or a mental condition that's preventing you from working.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just can't work. I'm just getting up there in age.
Well, if you have some, it kind of depends. And if you're getting up there in age, you may, what I'd recommend is you call Social Security and they can tell you what programs you might qualify for. If you have physical conditions that you treat with a doctor for, or maybe you should, that would prevent you from working, that's another factor, and that's where we would typically get involved in advising people if they have a medical disability. But if it's just a general question for Social Security, I would recommend that you call them. And we always say, if you have questions, I'm happy to talk with people about that. But on the initial question, I would suggest that you call and see what benefits you might qualify for under your husband's record.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for listening, and I hope that was helpful. Now, Lori, is there a duration of time that somebody has to be, the couple has to be married before they're entitled
10 years.
to?
Yeah. So you have to have been married 10 years before you would qualify for the spousal benefit. Yeah.
Yes. Well, that does free up a line, as Stephanie has let us know, that we do Social Security disability. We are here to answer any questions that you have regarding Social Security disability, workers' comp claims, which also correlate with Social Security disability sometimes, and auto accidents, slip and falls, and other types of personal injury claims. We have been doing personal injury. The firm has been doing personal injury since 1955, when Guy Pernick decided that he was going to no longer be an insurance adjuster, but rather fight for the injured and be a voice of the injured. And was one of the first, if not the first, law firm to specialize in personal injury claims only. So since then, we've carried on Guy's tradition and helping those injured fight the insurance companies the best that we can. So if you have a question, give us a call, 441-3000. I'm Matt Noyce, and Lori Robinson sitting right next to me. And it looks like we do have the next caller.
We do. This is Teresa from Clearwater.
Hi, Teresa. Thank you for listening. How can we help you?
Yeah, I just had a question. I was listening to your program, and I just had a question about the bicycles. Are you on the roadway, or should they be on the sidewalk just for liability reasons?
Well, that's a good question, and there's often a debate about that. The law, Florida law says that you are permitted to drive on the sidewalk if you're a bicyclist. If you're on the road, you have to adhere to all the rules that all motorists do. If you're on the sidewalk, you are deemed a pedestrian and you have to yield to all pedestrians. So, yeah, there's no there. People often think, well, gosh, why is that bicyclist on the sidewalk? Well, the law does not prohibit them from driving on the sidewalk. Now,
so if I'm crossing over on there's a driveway or something and somebody hits me, do they have the right of way to watch for the bicyclist, or do I have the right of way to watch for the motorist?
The motorist is responsible to make sure that all bicyclists and all vehicles are clear before they try to enter or exit their driveway or entranceway. And that's what I see happen a lot.
Right.
And Lori can talk about that.
Yeah.
What happens is when bicyclists are out on the sidewalk, too many cars don't stop at the stop bar, but rather they roll up to see if there's traffic.
I've done that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
I've done.
And what happens is that it puts the bicyclist at risk, and it puts the motorist at risk of causing a crash if they fail to yield to the bicyclist that's on the sidewalk.
And there's always that danger of the assumption about the bicyclist thinking the car sees them, the driver of the car sees them, when they really don't. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Oh, well, great.
Well,
Thank you very much. It was. Thank you. I appreciate you having this program to help us out.
Thank you, Teresa. We appreciate you listening.
All right. Take care.
Take care now. That does free up a line at 441-300. I think I did forget to say that we are live on the firm's Facebook page. We are live now. I'm hoping that the audio works.
And if that doesn't work, the firm also has a YouTube channel, and we are live there as well.
Oh, great.
Matt is such a smart guy over there on the other side of the glass.
Oh, yeah.
All except for his choice of baseball hats.
Yeah, I know. But again, this is radio. You guys can't see me in the control booth. I'm wearing a Mets hat and a Mets t-shirt.
You sure are.
Because tonight's the start of the Subway Series in New York. Don't get me wrong. I still support the Rays, but the Rays are my AL team.
That's
the Mets
right.
are my NL team.
I can't say anything because I'm a Cubs guy myself. So
then you know the pain of what it's like of watching bad baseball year after year after year in Chicago.
That's right. Recently, I went up to Chicago to watch the Rays versus the Cubs.
There you go.
And the Cubs won both games.
All right.
And so I was pleasantly surprised that they did, because I can watch the Rays win every day in Tropicana.
Yep.
It's good to see the Cubs play and then sing "Go Cubs Go" at the end of the victory. So
you can give the Cubs those 2 wins.
That's right. That's all they get.
That's it.
Well, I've said this before on this station. When I moved down here, I told the people I moved in with, listen, I have no problem supporting the Rays in baseball, the Lightning in hockey, and now with Brady gone, the Bucks in the NFL. But I still root for my teams. I'm a Met fan, a Jet fan, and an Islander fan.
We won't hold that against you, Matt.
Don't worry. Everybody has said that to me when they find that out about me.
That's right. Well, if you have any questions regarding personal injury, workers' comp, or Social Security disability, we are here for the next 40 minutes. The telephone number is 727-441-3000. Or if you have questions and you don't want to be on the air, just send us a message via our Facebook page at Pernick Caulfield, Averland Noyce Injury Lawyers, and we'll be happy to address any of the questions that you have there as well. So, Lori, we were talking about the bicyclists, and Teresa had a very good question about that. what happens if a bicyclist is involved in a crash? What rights does the bicyclist have?
I'm not really sure exactly what you're asking.
If they get hurt in a crash, can they bring a claim?
Oh, well, sure, of course, sure, yes. Yeah, no, that, and that's kind of, what occurs where the driver doesn't see the bicyclist or, and you end up in a collision. There can be a lot of disputes about it, but ultimately, if you're injured as a bicyclist, then you can bring a claim against the driver that was at fault, and that's really where the auto insurance comes into play, basically, in that scenario. And so, whatever your injuries are would be the determinant of what your overall claim was. But just because the person's been injured doesn't mean that they wouldn't be entitled to benefits. And ultimately, even potentially, if they don't have a car themselves and they don't have any PIP, they might even be entitled to the medical benefits. But the thing that we would be looking at mostly for people is, if they unfortunately did get injured and have a significant injury, which, that makes me think of, remember the wonderful client we have from Pasco County that was hit by a very large truck.
While he was riding his bike. And badly injured. I mean, a very bad fracture to his leg. And I mean, thank goodness he was such an athletic person that he was able to recover, but it took him a very, very long time. And such a good, very careful. I mean, he rode his bike all the time. And thank goodness, I think he's gotten back to being able to. But that he thought, it's the driver thought, rather, the truck driver who's way up and should have been able to see it. But he thought that our client saw him and wouldn't have gone into the roadway, but that's not how it goes. And, right.
And as I recall, that was quite a while ago. But I think it was a turn situation where the truck driver just a big Frito-Lay truck or something like that.
It was a Frito-Lay truck.
Frito-Lay? Yeah, I think it's something like that.
Yeah, he was turning right on a red light, and our guy was crossing the street.
Right.
And struck him, and I think he ended up underneath the Frito-Lay truck as well. So
right. So
it was devastating. But that's how we see those bike accidents a lot.
Right.
We see it as what Teresa was saying, people driving out of an entranceway and not appreciating that there's a bicyclist on the road or on the sidewalk and causing a collision. I have seen it where there are drivers on the road driving their vehicle wanting to turn right, and they pass a bicyclist and they just turn right in front of that bicyclist. The bicyclist has the same rights as the motorist has on the road. And so motorists have to yield before making any right turn or even left turn to all bicyclists.
Yes. And regardless of even your responsibilities, you just have to be on the lookout for that situation. Because what we see, of course, in cases, in any situation of those types of accidents, there are going to be arguments that can be made on both sides as to who was at fault, whether somebody could have prevented it in some way, and that type of thing. But obviously, everybody would like to prevent it.
Right. Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about the equipment and the headphones, but some things that bicyclists may not fully appreciate is we hear people, they weren't wearing a helmet on the bike.
Right.
Well, the law in Florida says that not every bicyclist is required to wear a helmet.
Just minors, really.
Right.
16.
Yeah. Anybody under 16, is required to wear a helmet. And so the fact that they're not wearing a helmet really could not or should not be used against them in types of comparative negligence. But there is an affirmative defense. It's called mitigation of damages. Now, Lori, would you explain to the listeners a little bit about mitigation of damages and whether or not the failure to wear a helmet could impact that? Sure.
So there are some things in the law that actually almost have common sense. Not too much.
Not too much.
But every so often there are. And so obviously I think most people would think kind of in the same category as the seatbelt. If there's an accident, then the argument can always be made, well, was there something you could have done that would have either prevented the accident or reduced your damages? And so the idea of a helmet, and honestly, they're kind of a hassle, but it's probably a very good idea for everybody to wear one. Because if something occurs, you prevent more serious injury. And certainly if something occurs and you're not wearing a helmet, it does lend itself to the argument that perhaps you could have reduced your damages if it was, for example, say it was a head injury or something like that, where perhaps it might have been mitigated.
We talked about going down memory lane. That just sparked me to go back down memory lane because Bob Carroll, one of the founding partners of Paranick Caulfield at Averill, Illinois, it was Paranick Carroll at one time.
Right.
And Bob was involved in a bicycle accident, and he proudly showed his bicycle helmet.
Oh my goodness!
Because he vehemently argued that saved his life.
Wow.
The helmet was crashed. I think it's still up in the closet where our office is. But he would take it on our FLA Law TV show.
Yes.
And use it as a prop to talk about the importance of using a bicycle helmet. Right. I vividly remember a picture of him holding the helmet, and I think he broke his thumb or his pinky finger or something. So that was all bandaged up. So that was Bob Carroll, memory lane going down that way too.
Right. Which, in a sense, a part of what we do in representing people that are injured, it just lends itself to becoming more aware of the ways that we can all protect ourselves.
Right.
And I've come to believe, that there are an infinite number of ways we can become injured.
That's right.
You see that in injury law. And so there's some things that classic motorcycles wearing a helmet, you can obviously see where you can save your life, basically.
Right.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't want to do it. And I can appreciate somewhat why you wouldn't. But yeah.
But to Bob Carroll is a testament to how it really saved his. I think he went head over the handlebars and everything. And so, well,
I've been thinking about getting my old bike that's been in the garage for a long time together. So I better get that helmet too.
That's right. Jacob's probably going to be mad that I'm going to say this on the radio, but my 17-year-old does not know how to ride a bike. As a personal injury attorney, I don't really encourage him to ride a bike that much anyhow.
Don't worry, they're not the only one. I don't know how to ride a bike either, and I'm almost 35.
See? Yeah. So another thing that they are required to do, bicyclists that I'm talking about, is that if they're going to drive at night, they are required to have a light.
Yes.
Too many bicycle accidents happen at night because they just don't see them.
Right. And I will say, I'm sure most of us have had this thought when you see somebody riding at night, and they don't have colorful clothing or something that fluoresces so you can see them. You think, in our line of work, I think, oh my goodness, wow.
Drives my wife a little crazy when I say, oh, they should be doing this, they should be doing that. Lori and I always talk about that. We should write a book of how people can get hurt because of all the cases we have helped.
Right.
So we do have an open line. So if you have a question for Lori Robinson or me, Matthew Noyce, we're here for the next half hour. Our telephone number is 727-441-3000. We're going to take a short break now, and then as soon as we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about Social Security disability and what happened this past week about preparation. So we'll be right back. Thank you for listening to FLA Law on the radio.
This is the TAN Talk Radio Network.
In 1955, the law firm now known as Paranick, Caulfield, Averill, and Noyes made a decision. Instead of taking whatever cases came through their doors, they decided to focus specifically on personal injury. 64 years later, the law firm is one of Clearwater's longest-running personal injury firms. Available 24 hours a day with offices in Clearwater and throughout Tampa Bay, they're ready to put decades of experience to work for you if you or a loved one has been injured in a car accident or injured due to someone's negligence or recklessness. If you feel overwhelmed, uncertain, or unsure about your next steps after being involved in an accident or after a loved one sustained serious injuries due to someone else's negligence, call Paranick, Caulfield, Averill, and Noyes at 727-796-8282 or online at usalaw.com. That's 727-796-8282 or online at usalaw.com. Non-attorney spokesman.
This is the TAN Talk Radio Network.
We are back on FLA Law on the radio. This is attorney Matthew Noyce. I'm here with my partner and my friend, Lori Robinson. We are both attorneys at Pernick, Caulfield, Averill, and Noyce, the oldest personal injury law firm in Tampa Bay. We've been helping people after car accidents, slip and falls, work comp accidents, Social Security disability claims, and any claim involving insurance just about since 1955. We're proud trial attorneys. We will fight for what we believe is right, and we will make sure that our clients are also educated about what is needed to prevent the need of one of us. I always tell my clients after we settle their case and we do a disbursement, I always tell my clients that I hope I never have to represent them again, because I don't want them getting hurt. And hopefully part of the things that we do through the course of representation is to help educate them how to protect themselves from being hurt, and taking the right steps to protect them and their family. One of those ways is uninsured motorist coverage. Before, I know I said we're going to talk about Social Security disability, but I every week I like to talk about uninsured motorist coverage just because I think it's so important. Uninsured motorist coverage is the most important automobile insurance coverage you can buy.
After liability, because you don't want to get stuck. But for yourself, to protect yourself in the event of injury.
You can have the most liability coverage. And if you're the best driver in the world that never causes an accident, you've been paying insurance premiums for the insurance companies. But if you get involved in a crash, and the at-fault driver does not have coverage, that's where UM, or uninsured motorist coverage, comes into play. So, Laura, if you can just briefly talk to our listeners what uninsured motorist coverage is and why it is so important.
Yeah, and I think it's something that unless you are involved in the insurance industry and, frankly, doing the kind of work we do, people don't really have a grasp of it or an appreciation for it. And the insurance agent, they're not particularly thinking about it, really. But an uninsured motorist is the coverage that protects you if you're in an accident and the other driver that causes the accident does not have any insurance or has very limited insurance. So classic example, I was actually in a rear-end collision myself last year, and thank goodness I wasn't injured seriously. But had I been injured, the driver that caused the accident was completely uninsured, had no insurance. And so if you're in a situation where you really are unable to be compensated for the losses you sustain if you don't have that uninsured motorist, and it's not usually that much of additional expense. So it's always something that a person should talk to their agent about, or if you're doing it yourself online, be sure you get the uninsured motorist. It's so important that Florida law actually requires the insurance companies to get a written rejection of that insurance. But of course, most people, unless you're a lawyer and you look at all the fine print, most people don't really appreciate it. And so they look at whatever the premium amount is. Yes, I can pay that. And then they initial where they're told to initial.
And nowadays with e-sign and everything, they just move it right down to the signature, and they don't even get to read that they're waiving their uninsured motorist coverage or rejecting their uninsured motorist coverage.
But that should tell you it's very, very important if the law actually requires people to, in theory, knowingly reject it. But in practicality, most people are not necessarily going to understand what it is unless they're listening to our radio program or know from some other source.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Because too many times we hear clients who come in after an auto crash and say, well, I'm not too worried because the at-fault driver told me that they have full coverage. And full coverage cringes whenever I hear that, because full coverage means nothing in the state of Florida. Full coverage in the state of Florida means that they have PIP coverage, or personal injury protection coverage, and they have property damage coverage. That's it. So
that's the minimum amount that you are required, and therefore, in that sense, it's quote full coverage, but it does not cover anything really to speak of. And
PIP coverage
protects the person.
Protects the person if they cause the crash. They can get medical treatment under their PIP plan, and it protects the other person's car.
A little bit, right?
A little bit. And nowadays it's $10,000.
Not too much today.
And $10,000 property damage nowadays goes very quickly.
Yes, it does.
And same with the PIP coverage too. The personal injury protection coverage. It's been $10,000 since I think 1970 something.
A long, long time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And one ambulance bill and a hospital visit, that $10,000 is eaten up already.
Right.
So.
And then and I think the other thing we'll see is even if the person has $25,000 in liability coverage. So, but it's an accident that sadly causes very significant injuries. Maybe you have to have a surgery or which we always hope that isn't the case, but our role is to try to protect people and see that they get compensated fairly for what has occurred to them. And so you could have some small insurance, and we see this a lot, where there's, it's more than quote full coverage, but it's more than what's required, but it's not really enough to respond in any kind of a reasonable way to what happens in a significant accident.
Exactly true, because PIP only pays 80% of your medical bills, so the other 20% has to be paid from you.
Right.
And PIP only pays 60% of lost wages, so the other 40% has to come out of your pocket. And that's once 10,000 is used up, then it's 100% are your damages for those things.
So if you have health insurance, that's one avenue. But of course, as we know with health insurance, you can have co-pays and deductibles that can make it pretty significant. I mean, we have a young lady that we're representing now that we just had that conversation with, where it's just very difficult to move to the place of getting the care you need because the out-of-pocket expense is not insignificant. So it's a good idea. The uninsured motorist is a very important coverage, and I do feel it's a public service that we try to perform to make sure that people are made aware of that.
And a little added thing for uninsured motorist coverage too is stackable. It's always good to get stacked coverage, especially if you have more than one vehicle on the policy. Because if you have 3 vehicles on the policy and you buy $25,000 worth of stacked coverage, you in essence have $75,000 worth of protection. And so whenever you have more than one policy one vehicle on the policy, I strongly encourage you to get stacked, because the increase of premium is so small that it's worth the benefit and the protection that you have.
Because we are talking here about protection from a significant accident.
Correct.
So if you have something that isn't too much, okay, great. And that's what we always hope for. But if you have a significant accident where you really have some ongoing treatment that goes on for a period of time and some lost wages, you really do want, things are expensive today.
Right.
So you really do want coverage that would come into play in the event that the driver that causes the accident doesn't have adequate coverage. And that's not at all uncommon.
No, I saw statistics. I think they said 33% of the drivers aren't carrying any insurance coverage.
Right.
So if you're sitting at a light on Sunset Point Road, and there's somebody to the right of you, somebody to the left of you, one of you all don't have any coverage.
Be especially worried about the one to the rear of you.
That's exactly true too. But
or the one making the left-hand turn directly into you. There's so many scenarios.
So as a community service that our firm does, we're always willing to take a look at your insurance policy and give you answer any questions that you have regarding the coverage that you're carrying. So if you need us to take a look at your policy, you can call us after the show, during business hours, and our firm number is 727-796-8282. And we're always happy to answer questions that you have about whether or not the coverage that you have is adequate to protect you and your family. So before we take shift over to Social Security disability and the preparation that you did in order to help our clients, let's take our next caller.
Yep, Patty from Clearwater is on the line.
Hi, Patty. Thank you for listening. How can we help you?
Hi, I have a quick question. We usually get audible accident questions, but I have a question. What if I were riding my bicycle or a bike, in town on the trail and I get hit? Who's liable for those medical bills if I need care?
That's a very good question, Patty. We talked about that a little bit, but it's good to go into more detail. And because we're going and talking about PIP as well. So, Lori, can you answer Patty's question?
Sure. So in that scenario, if the person on the bicycle has their own auto insurance policy, then they would be able to recover medical care benefits through that. But let's say they don't. And
But so before we even shift to that, so if you're on your bike and you own a car
right.
and you get hit on the bike but not in your car insurance pays for it.
Your car insurance, because it's an automobile accident event. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
But if you're not, let's say you don't have insurance, and actually a fair amount of people that are on a bicycle are on it because that's their transportation, right? So in that scenario, if you are in that scenario, or even if you're a pedestrian and you're in an automobile accident, then the driver that caused the accident and actually will be their PIP policy will come into play in that scenario. So there would be avenues to get the medical bills paid.
Right. And even if there's a dispute about causation, that other driver's PIP policy has to pay the bicyclist medical bills up to the $10,000.
Because we live in a quote no fault state for things that are handled just based on the medical bill part of it. Personal injury protection.
Right.
There will not be a test.
Bottom line, there are ways to get medical bills paid if you're a bicyclist and gets hit by a car. But it is important to talk to an attorney who understands bicycle accidents in order to understand what rights you have after a crash.
Right. And of course, a lot will depend also if it's a situation maybe that goes beyond whatever available personal injury protection insurance is available, and a liability claim needs to be brought. So there, it definitely is an area that will benefit from getting some advice from an attorney.
Right.
Okay, great. And your office number again is what?
Our office number is 727-796-8282. Our website is usalaw.com and also voiceoftheinjured.com. And so we welcome any calls or any emails, either through our phone or through our website. So, Patty, thank you for listening. Thank you for calling too. We appreciate it. We lawyers can talk and talk forever.
Yes, we can.
But it's a lot more fun if we're able to answer questions as well. So thank you very much for calling and listening to FLA Law on the radio.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. It was very helpful information.
Well, thank you. Well, now, Lori, before we take the next call, but again, if you do have a question, call us 727-441-300. 300. I forgot if I added enough zeros. 441-3000. But we had 3 hearings for Social Security scheduled for this week. And why don't you tell our listeners what happened without telling what happened?
Right. No, so Social Security, and this is one thing, the Social Security system in theory is designed for people to be able to go through without an attorney, but I mean,
so is the work comp system, but that doesn't work either.
I mean, I think to myself, I've been a lawyer for 40 some odd years, and we've been doing Social Security probably for 20 of that type thing, but it's like, it's amazing how complex a system it is. And the way the rules work are very complex. So we had quite a number of hearings. We actually had 3 scheduled earlier, actually on Tuesday morning, and then we actually got another tomorrow. But when you have the opportunity, and many of our judges are in fact, they're all very conscientious, but I was able to put together a memorandum to kind of summarize the case for our particular clients. And depending on the situation, the nature of your past work, your age, like the lady that called earlier, age is very important in Social Security.
Yes.
People will think that they're, you'll talk to your doctor or something like that, and then they'll say, well, you could do something. No, I don't think you're disabled. Or vice versa. They might think, oh, I think you're disabled. Well, Social Security has its own very specific definitions. And like everything in the government,
grids and all that fun stuff. Oh my
goodness! There's so many nooks and crannies about it. So, but it was very, very satisfying because I came into the office Monday morning because I prepared these memos and spent a lot of time. I have done a lot of significant cases in my legal career. The complexity of these things is surprising sometimes,
right.
But anyway, so I came into your office Monday morning saying, man, what a great Monday, because I'd gotten a call from the local hearing office saying that the judge had reviewed the memorandum. There were 2 judges actually in each of these cases and had decided that they could decide the case without having the hearing based on, the arguments made and what the medical record supported. So that was a great relief because it's so hard for people. I know that we talk about this all the time. It's what people go through in any personal injury setting is very, very difficult. Just on a living basis, and not to mention the challenge to income and that sort of thing. And when you reach the point of filing for Social Security disability, that's truly a last resort.
Right.
And so people are, and it takes a very long time. The claims take a long time to get through the whole system. So you can't help but feel grateful for the opportunity to help people.
Right. And we have clients, whether it's all of our Social Security disability people often tell us, I'd rather be working. I don't want to have to go through Social Security disability, but I can't. Same thing with our auto accident cases. People much rather not be hurt and not make a claim than have to get some compensation but still have the pain.
And you can people will hear things on the news, and it's not to say there aren't people that we're not representing them, but people that abuse the system. But I always think, and I know over the years we've had people that worked in the insurance industry, might be kind of tough until they've gone through the experience themselves and they realize, oh my goodness,
I remember that again, memory lane once again. I was a legal assistant before I was an attorney, and I was Mark Pernick's legal assistant, and there was an adjuster for the Good Hands people. That was the most difficult person to deal with, just so hard to deal with. Fought every case. All of a sudden, she wasn't around. She wasn't on any cases. I was like, wow, well, I wonder what ever happened to Sue. I'll just call her name Sue. I wonder what ever happened to Sue. And it turned out Sue got involved in an automobile accident, and she realized that people can really be hurt in auto accidents, and she couldn't continue to be
in that role,
liability adjuster any longer. So, I didn't want to wish anything bad on Sue, but it is a learning lesson. People rather not get hurt.
No.
But those briefs that you talked about, it just didn't happen how you just did a brief. I saw you working. You want
to tear your hair out because there's so many medical records. I mean, these records are thousands of pages.
Right.
It's like,
as a lawyer, as a Social Security disability lawyer, and as an auto accident lawyer as well, we need to know medical as well.
Yes.
And we need to be able to prepare the record or the summary, in essence, of all the medical treatment and all the disabilities and the impairments that they have in order to present it to a judge.
And then weave it into the way these regulations work, which I would put everybody to sleep if I started even trying to explain it, but they're very complex, as people could kind of probably guess with the government. It's like, okay, But
Lori won't say this, but I think it was one of the evenings. I think it was like 6:30, and Lori was like, "Well, I'm not done just yet. I wanted to finish this one memo one more time." So Lori is always probably I would definitely say the last lawyer in the office every day, and she's probably also the last person in the office every day. I try to walk down with her when I can, but sometimes baseball calls, and so we can't. So we do have about 10 more minutes left on FLA Law in the radio. This is Attorney Matthew Noyes, and that is Lori Robinson. We are personal injury attorneys, workers' compensation attorneys, and also Social Security disability attorneys. And we are here to answer your questions free of charge. All you have to do is call us at 727-441-3000. We do have about 10 more minutes left. So I remember when we used to do FLA Law on the TV show many, many years ago. And it would always be the last 5 minutes when the phone lines would light up and there'd be so many people, and we would stay after to answer the questions that we couldn't answer on live on the air. But again, if you have questions, we are here, 727-441-3000. We are also live on Facebook at Pernick, Caulfield, Averill, Noyes Injury Lawyers. You can type in your question there, and we will just read the question there, and you don't have to be on the radio.
All the modern technology.
That's right. I think we are on Instagram too, but I don't know how to do that. I think
Jacqueline does the Instagram part or whatever.
Yes. Which reminds me, next week we will be here also on Tuesdays at 5 o'clock, but I will not be.
Oh, that's right.
I will be on a family cruise for a little while, but Jacqueline Bryant, another partner at the law firm of Pernick, Caulfield, Averill, and Noyes, will be sitting in this chair and hosting the show. And who knows, Lori may be on it as well. I forget who her guest is.
Never can tell.
But we are always here every Tuesday from 5 until 6 on AM 1340 and also on FM 106.1. We do this as as a public service, really, to try to help people understand what rights they have after being hurt. Too many people say, "Oh, forget it, it's your own fault." You don't have any rights, and they're misled.
Very much so.
That.
Yeah, I think some of the newer legislation reacted somewhat to that kind of an idea. Things, for example, in the negligent security area, where they are now going to allow the consideration of a tortfeasor, a criminal that has actually committed a criminal act, to be considered along with the other questions about negligence, where it's kind of apples and oranges. It's not really the same thing. And you can always understand, we all wish things wouldn't happen, but the issue for the law related to injury has always been that we all have a duty to act reasonably. And if we do not, then we need to be held accountable for that. And so that's really what's at issue.
Exactly true. I mean, if you're held accountable, the next time you may act differently. You may act safer in such a way that you won't end up hurting somebody.
And there are arguments, all kinds of arguments that can be made on both sides. But if you travel to Europe or other places, or wherever you may be gallivanting after, on your shore excursions, you're not going to see the same devotion, I'm going to say, or dedication to safety that we have in our country. And the reason we have it is because we have the negligent system that we have. And so, people can make arguments about whether this is fair or that is fair, and that's fine. But understand it's really geared towards people being careful in what they do when they're operating a business, or even as a person. If you bring somebody onto your property, I mean, obviously you need to be tuned in to things that could be a source of injury.
Sure.
Which isn't to say that we don't also have personal responsibility to look out for ourselves, but that doesn't really take away from the underlying responsibility of a business or a person in general.
And another misconception is that people think, gosh, you got in an auto accident, you're only in it for the money and you're going to get a big recovery.
Right.
Now, those billboards that say, so-and-so got me X amount of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars doesn't help the cause.
Say millions, right?
Yeah, or millions or millions or that doesn't help the cause. But in reality, that is the exception to the norm.
Right. I mean, you honestly, obviously as lawyers, we're very happy to help people that have very serious injuries and try to get the very best recovery we can. And we get large recoveries too. Sure. We don't have the tendency to put them on the billboard like that. But it's kind of misleading because the average situation is likely to be less than that. And that's all right. But you still are entitled to compensation.
Exactly.
Even if what happened to you, thank goodness, didn't destroy your life, but it still impacted you.
And most times what happens is people develop a new normal. They even forget, that they used to be able to do X, Y, or Z, or they used to be able to sleep this way or that way, but they can't because of a crash. The person who causes the crash needs to be held accountable and responsible for causing those damages and impacting that person's life. But not only that person, it's also a spouse. The spouse is also entitled to damages for the loss of affection and services of someone who is hurt, picking up more duties. Now, yes, love and marriage, you in goodness and sickness and in health and such like that. But the spouse is also entitled to compensation.
Which can be particularly a factor in a situation with very serious injury that really requires the other spouse to act almost as a caregiver.
Yeah, we've had cases where the spouse had to quit their job in order to take care of their injured spouse, from a crash. And why wouldn't that person be entitled to compensation? Right. We live in a wonderful country with a wonderful legal system. Is it the best legal system? Is there flaws to it? Sometimes.
Yeah, I always like to say, I wince a little bit at wonderful because when you have a lifetime in the law, there are many things to be disappointed in, but it is still the best system in the world.
That's exactly true. That's exactly true. And that's why we fight.
Yes.
Why we fight. I became an attorney because I was involved in a serious car accident when I was 16 years old. And I had the fortunate experience of meeting an attorney who fought for me and my family after State Farm tried to take advantage of our lack of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And that inspired me to work my butt off,
yes,
really,
you did. I still can.
to go to my undergrad and go to law school and become an attorney so I could fight for them as well. And you loved to debate in
Yes.
Clearwater High School.
Right. Yeah, I always have loved debate. So it was kind of a natural transition as I looked at what I wanted to do. It was just made sense. I wanted to be a trial lawyer. And thank goodness I've really been able to live out that dream.
And before shining as a civil personal injury board certified civil trial attorney, you also were involved in other areas of law.
Yes, I began my career and spent the first decade as a criminal defense lawyer. I worked in the public defender's office in West Palm Beach, and it was a marvelous experience. I mean, in terms of the trial experience, you couldn't beat it. And honestly, helping people. It's not what people think, really, in the usual situation. Not to say there aren't some very tough things, but it really, I was very, very, very happy to do that. Personal injury turned out to be a pretty good segue that got you out of the jail. That was kind of good in certain ways, but also it allowed you to be involved and try to help people.
Right. And the public defender's office was helpful for you in your career now. For me, it was being a waiter at Denny's
There
restaurant. It was the best experience. I always tell anybody who wants to listen to me, if I go to a class over at Stetson or in legal assistance, I said, be a waiter. You know, you see all kinds of different people, especially at Denny's restaurant. If you're working the graveyard shift, you can deal with all kinds of situations and all kinds of people. So that's my little tidbit there. Yeah. We are about to wrap up FLA Law on the radio, but before we wrap up, what if people have questions regarding Social Security disability, workers' compensation, or auto accidents, slip and falls, or anything like that? Lori, how can they reach us if it's not between 5 and 6 on Tuesday?
Well, call the office, 727-796-8282. You can also go to our website and do a contact, but feel free to call. And we're always happy to field questions and try to give answers. Actually, in that setting, it's probably a little easier. This is a little bit more like stump the lawyer. You know, it's like off the top of my head. But we're always happy to be available. In fact, I would say I spend a considerable amount of time trying to do that for people that call and have issues.
We may not even take the case, but they have questions and they deserve to be treated with respect, and they deserve to get their questions answered. And so we proudly do that throughout Tampa Bay.
Absolutely.
So thank you for listening. Yes, thank you for listening. Lori, thank you for showing up with me. This is FLA Law on the radio. I am Matthew Noyes, and that is Lori Robinson. We appreciate you listening, and we encourage you to listen next week as well. In the meantime, drive safely and watch out for those who don't.
There you go.
Have a good night.